In this section we're going to focus on redoing our navigation section. But before we do, I just want to address a quick mistake which I made when creating the results raw_1 view within our SQL database. At the moment, all of our results show the results for the entire season. So at the moment, you can see that we have 36, 37 draws, and we've played 38 games all of the time. But in our database, there are future fixtures which haven't yet been played. So to correct this mistake, I've gone back to the results raw_1 view and I've added this little line here, which limits the output to only fixtures which have happened in the past. With this correction in place, if we refresh our page now, you can see that we only have the results for fixtures which have already been played. So now that we've corrected that SQL mistake, we can come across to our nav section within our header page here. And the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually move this into a page of its own. So we'll cut that and save the header page and create a new page called navigation. And we'll just paste that across into here. Now we do actually still want to display this, and so we need to also include it in our view. So if we go to our view, we also need to include navigation. And if we refresh our page now, we're going to get exactly the same output. Our navigation section is still included, despite being in its new file. So if we close out of the view controller, or the view library, sorry, we can begin to contemplate how we're going to actually go about creating this. So the actual nav section is this core menu, and the actual menu items are going to be these core items. Now if you look at the actual links, these are the actual controllers, slash, and then the actual methods within each controller. And so rather than us manually managing this, we can use the controllers themselves to manage it for us. So what we're going to do is create a PHP section, and we're going to create a variable called files, and this is going to be the output of a scan directory, and we're going to pass it our controller folder. Now this is actually going to include a couple of things that we don't want, so what I'll do is I'll just output this for now. And kill the page load. And then if we refresh our page, we can see that we're going to get an error. And that's because this should all be in uppercase. I'm not sure why it came up with the lowercase version, that was from a separate project. If you refresh this now though, we get the output. But this is what I'm talking about. We also get this dot and this double dot. When you're manipulating file directories from a command line, this dot refers to the current directory and the double dot refers to the directory immediately above it. So this directory's parent. We're not going to want to create links for these though, and so when we're going through our script, we want to make sure that we omit these. So the next thing that we're going to do is to actually loop through all of our files. So if the file is either the single dot or the double dot, we're just going to continue. Which means that we're going to go into the next iteration in this for loop. If it's not one of those two strings, we want to actually check whether it has what we're going to create within it, which is a property called links. So we're going to create another if statement, and we're going to use the property exists, and we're going to pass the class across, which will be the file, and the specific property that we're looking for is called links. For now, if that does exist, we're just going to echo it out, and we're also going to need to instantiate this. And so the file will be called L. And that should be file. We can change that to F actually, that will make more sense. And so if that property does exist, we're going to echo F link. And we actually want to split off the .php from this, because we're not going to be instantiating the file, we're going to be instantiating the actual class. And because we're going to be loading these classes, we also need to require them. Which we'll do before we remove the .php. So now you can see that's because none of the actual classes have that property within them. We're just getting our var dump, we're not getting any additional output up here. What if we do go ahead and create that property though? So in our index we've got this public property. If we refresh our page now, we need to output this as an array. And because it's an array, we need to output it as an actual array field. So if we change this echo into var dump, and refresh our page, you can see that we get this empty array. So at this point we know that we have this links property within our index page, and so we can actually use this to output our actual pages. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create basically a copy of this. And we're going to do this for the actual index page. So we have our file, which is just the actual name of the file. And so we can create an output here to actually output a name for this section. The URL is also going to be affected. So if we prepend that with a slash and just put the file again, we can also put the index after it. And finally we can do the exact same thing here. So we can prepend the file here. So I'll kill that. And I'll remove all of these. In fact, I'll just comment them out. But if we refresh our page now, we're going to get our index page, which will link to index. The capitalization on this though looks out of place, and so a very simple fix is to first convert this string to lower. That's going to ensure that it's going to be lower even if we had capitalization within our controller. We're then going to type UC name, or sorry, UC words, and feed that into that. If we refresh our page again, that's going to capitalize it for us. So if we have this links property, we may as well use it to actually link to our other pages. but we're only going to link to other pages within the specific section. So in this section we have index and news. Although we have removed the actual news page, so that shouldn't be there anymore. What we do want to do though is to be able to type in news. Just using this as an example, we'll create a link to the news page even though it doesn't exist. So after we've put our link to our index page, we're going to then look for any files within our links property, and we can use a for each again here. And we're going to look at the f links, and we're basically going to do the exact same thing again here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the news, which is going to be our section name, and we're also going to have, in this case, assessment, which is going to be our link icon. So it's very easy to do. All we have to do is paste the icon here and replace file with key. Although that's not going to work entirely because that's going to put that as an index page. So what we want to do is to move index, or rather the file, beforehand. So let's take a look at how this works out. We refresh our page again, and we have the news page with the assessment file showing up properly. It will refer us to the news page correctly, but obviously we don't have a page here to display, and so it's just referring us back to the index page. And so we can basically use this to populate all of our navigation. So we're obviously going to delete this instance here, which is going to leave it as a blank array. In our fixtures page, we're going to have a blank array as well, which is going to link to our fixtures index page. In our player page, for now we're going to have just a blank array again, which is going to link us to our goal scorer page. In our results section, we're going to have an array, but at this time we're going to have an input page as well. So we'll create an input page, and we're going to use which page? We're going to use the create icon on this occasion. So then we're going to have our team page, and we're just going to have our selection icon. Oops. Now this page is quite unique because we have an index page here, but we never are going to actually allow our users to see any content if they go directly to that index page. And so what we can do is actually change this to profile. And to do that we also need to change index page here to profile. And we will create a selection page here. For our selection page we've used input. So if we refresh our page again, we're going to see mostly the correct information. We want to hide this team section now because we don't have any information in here. And so what we can do is within our navigation section, we just add in another check to see whether a method exists. So if method exists, we're going to look at an F and we're going to look for index. We'll just move that line into there. So this time when we refresh, we're going to hide the page automatically. Because most sections are going to have an index page, it's going to be normal for us to actually have that. And so we're actually saving ourselves some time by not having to specify the index page as being linkable to in every occasion. And we can see as well that each of these sections does go to the intended target. We could spend some more time as well to make these actually customizable, but given that these are always going to be the index pages and more information will be available within those pages, it's not really too necessary. We could also go into as much detail as to provide preferences for different sections as far as ordering is concerned. But given that this is just a very simple navigation system, I think this will suffice for us. Now before we move on, there is one final thing which we need to change. If we come back to our table page, you can see that our links are not going to work. All of our links throughout all of our templates are still pointing to team index instead of team profile. So I'm going to use one of MySQL's built-in facilities to refactor. So I'm going to take every instance of team/index and I'm going to replace it with team/profile. We are going to need to go through and actually do this on all of the pages though that have links. So it's just a matter of opening the page up and then clicking replace all. We don't need to worry if there are no instances of it on that page, because it obviously won't replace anything. So now that we've made those changes, we can go back to our website and refresh the page. And all of our links will hopefully work correctly this time. So on our actual league table, you can see at the bottom that they go to team profile and then the actual team name. On our fixtures pages, they are linking correctly as well. On our results pages, again, they are linking properly. On our other version of the fixtures pages, they're not linking properly. And it turns out that that's just because we have that page cached. If we refresh it, we have actually made the changes. If we change the results page, we can see that this is also working properly. So at this point, all of the main output sections of our website are complete. All that we have to do now is the actual input sections. And so that's what we'll be doing in our next session. Specifically, we're going to be creating our referee input page, which will allow us to update our scores for each fixture as the games are actually played. So make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss out. So if we go back across to our page and refresh, we can see that we have these sections, which obviously we're still missing the player data, but this is more close to what we intended it to be. The data is still quite different, however, and so we can go ahead and correct that now.